Pastor Phil coming to you with this third installment of the Faith Time Ministry. This month's theme is what did Jesus do? Not what would he do, but what did he do? And we've already talked in our first video, we talked about miracles of healing people in their body, bodily healing. We talked about exorcism, and we looked in specifically at the Gerasene demoniac. And then we talked about teaching, and we looked specifically at the Sermon on the Mount. So today we're going to talk about two things that Jesus did. We're saving the best for last. We're going to talk about the cross and resurrection next week before we gather together in person to talk about all these things. But today we're going to talk about miracles of abundance and miracles of power over nature. And that happens lots of times in the gospel stories. Miracles of abundance first. We hear in the Gospels that Jesus' very first miracle was a miracle of abundance. At the wedding at Cana in Galilee, Jesus' mother, himself, and his disciples had been invited, and they run out of wine, which was a big deal because you didn't drink water because it could be poisonous, but wine was safe to drink. So running out of wine meant you'd have to send everybody away and the party would be over. And thinking about context, too, this was a time when Israel was oppressed by Rome, which is not a position they wanted to be in. And so here they are having this wedding. They're trying to have a regular life as best they can. They're trying to celebrate what there is to celebrate. And then they run out of wine. It's almost like the straw that broke the camel's back. Not only are we in this time of oppression, but we can't even celebrate this wedding like we want to because of this lack. So Jesus enters into that situation. They have stone water jars full of water for the Jewish rites of purification. The Jewish people would immerse themselves in water in order to be ritually clean. It came along with prayers that were said. But he has those water jars filled up, and the water turns into wine. And so now if you do the math on that, they have 180 gallons of wine, which is not just enough to get by, but more than enough. And I like to use that as a text at weddings when I do a wedding to let the couple know that, in Jesus, in love, you have all that you need and more. And so the lack of a little bit of money here and there or a little bit of patience here and there isn't going to be a lack that makes a difference at the end of the day because you have all you need in Christ. So that's one example of a miracle of abundance. Another one that people know about is the feeding of the 5,000. So people have come to hear Jesus speak, and it's getting late in the day. One of the disciples says, let's send them away so they can go buy food in the town. Jesus is like, no, let's feed them. And so they have 5 loaves and 2 fish, and Jesus multiplies the loaves and the fish so that everybody, 5,000 people, eat and are satisfied, and there's 12 basketfuls of leftovers left over. That 12 being symbolic of the 12 tribes of Israel. It's a number of completeness. So even the leftovers are saying something about God's abundance and completeness. Both of those miracles of abundance plus the rest of them are making a statement that in Jesus is the abundance of God's presence, that in his presence there is more than enough grace, more than enough love, more than enough salvation, that in his presence is abundance. Miracles of power over nature. So when does that happen? One of the ones I think of is the stilling of the storm. Jesus and the disciples are on their way somewhere. Storm comes up. Jesus is asleep in the back of the boat. And I love this image of the disciples shaking him awake and saying, don't you care that we're about to die? Get up and do something, or at least get up and worry with us, right? But since this is Jesus, he gets up, he says, you have little faith, and he rebukes the wind, he stills the storm, he has authority over nature. Another time that he demonstrates authority over nature is when he walks on water. So there's a story where the boat had left him on land, and he just walks to the boat on his own feet. And then Peter tries to do it too, but he begins to doubt and sink. And then a very Lutheran part of the story, Jesus doesn't just let him drown because he doesn't have good faith. Jesus picks him up anyway. So it's the strength of Jesus, not the strength of our faith sometimes that makes the difference. So miracles of abundance, showing the abundance of God manifested in Christ. Miracles of power over nature, showing that even the scariest things in the world are nothing to be afraid of in the face of Jesus' authority, both making a statement about who Jesus is. So next week we'll get into the cross and resurrection. Thank you for listening. I look forward to seeing you in person over lunch at the end of the month.